Take a slow breath and hold it for a moment. The air that just filled your lungs is a little under 4/5 nitrogen, about a fifth oxygen, and a thin trace of other gases, and it is, for now, entirely free. It surrounds every one of us, all the time, at no cost at all. And yet, the oxygen that keeps a patient alive in a hospital ward, the nitrogen that blankets a computer chip as it is made, the hydrogen that helps refine the fuel in your car, are none of them free. They are separated, purified, and delivered by a small handful of companies, and the largest of them is a firm most people could not name. It is called Linde, and this is a series about the companies that run the world. Linde represents a strange and almost invisible kind of power. It does not make the steel, or the chips, or the medicine. It takes the ordinary air around us and a few other raw sources and turns them into the pure industrial gases, without which a startling amount of the modern world would simply grind to a halt. It sits at one of the quietest and most essential choke points there is, the breadth of industry itself. To understand the business, you have to understand a beautiful and counterintuitive trick. The air is free, but pure gases are precious. Linde's core craft is cryogenic air separation, cooling air until it turns to liquid, and then gently distilling it apart into its components, drawing off oxygen, nitrogen, and argon, each on its own. What nature mixes for nothing, Linde patiently pulls apart at scale. And those gases are everywhere, once you know to look for them. Oxygen feeds the furnaces that make steel and keeps patients breathing. Nitrogen keeps things cold and inert, from frozen food to sensitive electronics. Hydrogen refines fuels and promises cleaner energy. Argon, helium, carbon dioxide, and the rest quietly run through countless factories. Almost no serious industry operates without them. The company itself grew from a deep root. More than a century ago, a German engineer, Carl von Linde, worked out how to liquefy air practically and built a business on it. Then, in a vast merger a few years ago, Linde joined with the American producer Pluxair, and the combined firm became the largest industrial gas company on the entire planet. But here is the crucial thing, the real source of its power. The moat is not the gas, because the raw air is free to anyone. The moat is the delivery. Linde runs pipelines that feed gas straight into a customer's plant, builds entire gas factories at the factory gate, and locks in long-term supply contracts that can run for 15 years or more. That infrastructure turns the business into a web of quiet local monopolies. Once Linde's pipeline is plumbed into your steelworks, and the contract is signed for a decade and a half, no rival can realistically dig up a competing pipe and undercut it. The customer is bound, gently but almost completely, for a generation. And the scale of it is measured less in the size of the company than in how much depends on it. Along with just two significant rivals, Linde supplies a very large share of the world's industrial gas. Three companies, in effect, stand quietly behind a great deal of the breadth of modern industry. Those rivals are worth naming. There is France's Air Liquide, its true equal and oldest competitor, and America's Air Products. Rather than a savage price war, the three tend toward a stable, polite division of the world, an oligopoly that carves up regions and customers more than it fights over them. Consider, too, who the customers are and why they cannot simply stop. A hospital needs medical oxygen every single hour of every day. A steel mill or a chemical plant needs a continuous, unbroken flow of gas to keep running at all. Even the makers of the world's most advanced chips depend on ultra-pure gases delivered without fail. Cut the supply, and many of these operations halt within hours, not weeks. There is a newer frontier too that has thrust these quiet firms toward the center of the future. As the world reaches for clean energy, hydrogen has become a great hope, and Linde is one of the largest producers and movers of it on Earth. Air Liquide chases exactly the same price, and the contest over the hydrogen economy may reshape both. The moat, then, is one of the most durable in all of industry. You cannot quickly build a rival pipeline network, and you cannot win back a contract that is already signed for 15 years. The pipes in the ground and the paper in the vault are, together, the fortress that keeps newcomers out. So we reach the question this series always asks, of what would break if Linde vanished? Hospitals would scramble for oxygen, steel, and chemical output would stall, and the making of chips and frozen food would wobble. It would not be instantly fatal because rivals exist and could eventually fill the gap, but it would tear a sudden hole in the very breadth of industry. Which brings us to the uncomfortable question. We have allowed the air itself, the one thing that ought to belong to everyone equally, to be quietly turned into a metered utility, separated and rationed and sold back to us by a small ring of firms, and we scarcely noticed it happen. Should a choke point on something as fundamental as breath really rest with so few hands? To be fair, and it genuinely deserves saying, what Lindy does is extraordinarily hard and genuinely essential. Separating gases to perfect purity and delivering them safely and without a single interruption to hospitals and factories alike is a monumental feat of engineering that quietly keeps a great deal of the world alive. And that is the deeper lesson of this particular giant. The most durable power often lies not in the visible product everyone admires, but in the invisible input everyone assumes is simply free. Lindy understood that owning the delivery of the very air is a more lasting kind of power than making any single thing out of it. So the next time you take a deep breath, or drive past the silent tangle of pipes at the edge of an industrial estate, or watch oxygen flow to someone in a hospital bed, spare a thought for the quiet company that takes the free air around us and turns it into modern industry's most essential and most carefully metered ingredient.